Now, at the time that I was recording this video, it was around Christmas. Now, what is Christmas if not the time where you get a bunch of random crap that you either use or don't? Unfortunately, that doesn't look good on a thumbnail, so today I aim to find out, can you beat Fallout 4 with gifts? Now, what actually qualifies as a gift in Fallout 4, in my opinion, is something that an NPC A gives you, or B tells you you can have. Now, there are a few problems with this in that most NPCs don't give stimpaks or RADaway for free, as well as the fact that ammo is going to be kind of a rare commodity this run. Never mind that for now though, let's start the run. As soon as I loaded into the vault, I gave myself a fitting title and began the run. In case you're wondering, my specials are all focused on a melee build, as I don't think I'm going to be able to sustain a rifle or pistol at any point during this run. Once I reached Sanctuary, I debated a bit on whether or not I could XP farm there, but I ended up deciding against it as no one outright gives you the town, so I just skipped it and instead made my way to Concord for my first quote-unquote gift. Now obviously this is one of my worst starts, seeing as I have no armor, no weapons, and no form of healing. This means that the raiders outside the museum are completely off limits to me, and I actually have to wait for Preston to take them out. For once in his life, Preston was actually kicking butt today, so it wasn't that bad, except I died and reloaded, and ended up all the way back in the vault. It's okay, this isn't the first time this happened to me, so I kinda just skipped along, this time picking up dog meat before I went to Concord, as he would help a bit. I think dog meat's okay for this run, as he technically gives himself up to you. Anyways, once I reached Concord, me and Dogmeat acted as an effective distraction, as Preston proceeded to beat the crap out of any raiders nearby. He then gave me the laser musket that was lying on the floor next to his friend, and I went inside the museum. Although I was given a few cells, I wasn't actually planning on using them till later, so I decided to just gun bash the rest of the raiders that were inside the building. They are obviously in close quarters and very weak, so they weren't that strong. Now obviously once I got outside, I had the real problem. Now I have beaten the Deathclaw and Conquered in much worse scenarios, but still this one hurt a lot. Mainly because for once hiding in the buildings wasn't really working for me, as the Deathclaw kept reaching inside, pulling me out, and then spraying my guts everywhere. Eventually I was able to whittle it down by gun bashing it, and like the piece of crap he is, Preston shot the Deathclaw, taking away the last bit of its health, and stealing the kill from me. This one action of his made me not want to side with the Minutemen, so I continued onward to Diamond City to hopefully pick up a few more presents. On my way to Diamond City, I got familiar with the locals, as well as running into a trader that I've honestly never seen. When I got to Diamond City, my first course of action was to punch Piper into the wall, so that I could just skip the little cutscene that plays when you get there. Once inside, I accepted a handful of quests, with the first one being the interview with Piper. You see, if you finish the interview, she actually gives herself up as a companion, and I think that counts as a gift, so I will be taking her along for the first portion of the run at any rate. The best part about this is Piper actually has two pieces of armor on her, in the form of the red trench coat and road leathers. I am the needy one of the two of us, so I took the red trench coat. Now that I've been given the gift of friendship, I decided that I needed a weapon. No ordinary run-of-the-mill present would do for me. No, instead I decided to get arguably one of the hardest weapons to get in Fallout 4. I'm of course talking about the Shishkebab, because let's face it, it is annoying to get. Under normal circumstances, the Forged are a nightmare with their flamer baseball bat combo, but with virtually no armor, no healing, and a single companion, they are a nightmare. I decided the best course of action would be to sneak into the Sages Ironworks, which, well, it didn't go too well. Turns out the raiders aren't as blind as I thought, as they immediately spotted me and lit me on fire. I tried multiple different tactics to avoid said fire, but sadly nothing works. Instead, I just ran as fast as I could to a different room, and yeah, that kinda worked as I got thrown into the conversation with Slag. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, I could not fight him. I tried so many times to fight him and it just wouldn't work. At first I thought I could use gun bashing to push him into the giant fire cauldron, but that didn't work because, well, he just turned around and instantly killed me. I tried talking to him, that didn't work, and I also tried using my remaining bullets to try and take him out, but that didn't work. Eventually I did the right thing and chickened out, and just took him out while I was in very easy. Perhaps very easy was too easy though, as I one-shot his fusion core, forcing him out of his power armor, and making him virtually useless. The real threat in the room ended up being his bodyguard with a flamer, as they would just melt my health bar so quickly I couldn't actually do anything to save myself. Luckily they were pretty brittle, so I took them out along with Slag, and I got the shish kebab that I can't use. You see, it's not technically a gift to me until I go to the Abraham Finch and have him handed over to me. I did that, he handed it over, and then I try to kill him. The only thing that stopped me from chopping off his head there was the fact that Piper immediately stopped being my friend, and I didn't want to lose a present just yet. Instead, I spared him, and he didn't get eaten today. I say eaten because up until this point I've been using the cannibal perk to heal, and I'm starting to run into a problem. You see, Piper doesn't like the cannibal perk, so eventually she'll stop being my companion if I eat too many corpses. I literally cannot stop eating them, otherwise I'm immediately going to fail this run due to not having enough health, so I'm going to have to replace her. That's not my concern right now though, instead I went to Vault 114 and started dealing with the trigger happy folk. Now the triggermen weren't exactly that much of a problem, mainly because I could just out DPS them. The Shishkebab could one-shot most of them, and even if they did get a chance to fire, they could destroy me, but honestly it wasn't that bad as long as I was moving. I took the moving target perk early on in this run, so running was definitely the best thing I could do there. Nothing much happened in the vault except for the fact that I accidentally made Freddy Krueger when I burnt one of the triggermen and he kinda just stayed alive. I also may have attempted another cinematic kill on Dino, which, well, yeah, it didn't work at all as he almost killed me. After freeing Nick, I made my way to Skinny Malone and had one of the worst times trying to get past him ever. Since my armor rating is so low, I can't actually withstand more than a couple of seconds of his fire, so I had to stay behind cover most of the time. The only other alternative was to take him out in VATS, but the problem with that is that his backup would actually take me out. This meant I had to do this kind of weird maneuver where I took out his bodyguards as fast as possible, ran, waited for my AP to recharge, and then did the same to Skinny. Darla herself wasn't that much trouble, as although she has a bit more hit points than everyone else, she wasn't actually that strong since she has to be in close quarters with me. Once I left the vault, I told Nick to go back to Diamond City, and I made my way to the combat zone. In case you're curious why, I wanted to pick up Kate as a backup companion just because I had a feeling that Piper was going to crap out on me soon. You see, back to the dilemma with the companions, I actually need someone without morals, because anyone who does have any morals will dislike the cannibal perk. The only companions I really had to choose from was Hancock, Strong, and Kate, but to be honest, I forgot completely about Hancock and I didn't want to use Strong. I still had another companion up my sleeve, but I was going to save them for later. Anyways, the raiders at the combat zone weren't very strong, as I managed to slit every single one of their throats, as my guy refused to play any other animation. Now, as I mentioned, I still had one more card up my sleeve, and this one was my ace in the hole. Now, there's one place in Fallout 4 that I feel like definitely oversaturated the rewards, and that place is Nuka-World. Now, here's the problem. Nuka-World is designed for level 30 players, and I'm currently level 8. I don't want to cheese my way through the gauntlet because that'll glitch everything out, so this means I'm going to have to run through the gauntlet at level 8. Okay, I'm going to say this now. I'm not beating Coulter on hard mode. That is virtually impossible. I am level 8. He is going to destroy me since I have no healing or armor. Instead, I'm going to be running the entire gauntlet on hard mode, spare one part, and fighting Coulter in very easy. Anyways, in order to actually reach the theme park, I obviously have to go through the Nuka-World train station, which is a problem as it's guarded by a load of gunners. I'm not going to be able to beat them, so instead I just snuck around and used Piper as a distraction to get into the station. Let's not kid ourselves, I'm bad at stealth games, they saw me and I had to run for it, but luckily since I died inside the transit station, they didn't actually follow me through when I reloaded, so I was able to eventually leave. Once I got to Nuka-World, I prepared for what was going to be about an hour of headaches, and then went inside the gauntlet. Now the first couple sections of the gauntlet aren't actually that bad. I just took my time, disarmed as many traps as possible, and quick saved every couple seconds. It's been a little while since I've actually been in Nuka-World properly, so I wasn't taking any chances. The room that ended up screwing me over for the rest of the gauntlet was the one with all the radiation. This is an area I completely forgot about and ended up spending way too much time in as I lost most of my health inside. I had no Radaway, Radex, or anything to protect me from the radiation or prevent it, so I just had to tank the blow. The rest of the gauntlet went pretty smoothly until I reached the gas room where I actually had to drop the difficulty because if I kept the game on hard mode, it would just instantly kill me. After the gas room, the gauntlet went without a hitch until I reached the final room, which is the room I was talking about, where I actually had to drop the difficulty again, mainly because the raiders would once again insta-kill me. Now at the end of the gauntlet, I had to face the big bad boss in the form of Coulter. Now Coulter is, for all intensive purposes, a very hard boss. He has a high-powered rifle, a really good set of power armor, and actually has his own gimmick. Now thankfully Gage does give me the water gun so I could technically use it without cheating in this run, but something I didn't see coming was that he actually gave me a load of other things. He tells you could have everything that's inside that room, so I picked up as many items as I could before leaving. Some of it was more useless than others, because a minigun without any ammo is essentially a very big paperweight, but I did get a couple useful items in the form of healing. I also got a small knife, and most importantly a couple of frag grenades. You see, in very easy, the frag grenades actually let me to take out Coulter to low health, as using 2 of them dropped him down to a sliver of health. I accidentally missed a third, so I had to go finish him off with a Shishkebab, which, although was a bit of trouble, it ended up working out. This made me king of Nuka-World, but more importantly granted me access to a number of items. Not only did I get Coulter's room and everything in it, I also got Gage as a companion. Now, I can't stress this enough, Nuka-World is a late game area. Now, the reason I say this now is because Coulter's armor is some of the best armor I've seen in the game. I naturally took it, and now I am virtually invincible. Coulter himself is an excellent companion, mainly because he has an automatic handmade with infinite ammo, and can decimate everything in front of you. If you've never actually played through Nuka-World, the best thing I can compare him to is Jericho from Fallout 3, as he is also a bald ex-raider with a machine gun. Another good thing about having Gage as a companion is that while you're in Nuka-World, he doubles up as a vendor. Now, the only reason I didn't use this feature is because when I was in Nuka-World, I somehow aced the charisma check with Mason, which got me the problem solver. If I used this with Gage's vendor inventory, I would have completely broken the run, so I decided against it. Now, this run was a bit odd because it kept having sort of strange difficulty spikes that would come and go. Now, I'm saying this now because there was no difficulty in clearing out Fort Hagen. The synths couldn't really stand up to the Shishkebab, let alone Gage's pure DPS output, so I ended up breezing my way straight through most of the fort until I got to Kellogg. Once I got to him, I kind of just smacked him with the Shishkebab and watched as Gage unloaded an entire magazine from his rifle straight into his skull, instantly killing him. Now, real quick, something I'd like to mention are quest items are exempt from the rules of this challenge, as put simply, the challenge would be impossible if they weren't. There are a number of items in Fallout 4 that you have to pick up, so I'm going to be considering any and all quest items exempt from the challenge. Anyways, after picking up whatever brain bits were intact, I made my way to Good Neighbor to go to the memory den. Once I arrived there, I set my Gage on Finn, and watched as he tore him to shreds. I then went inside the memory den, did memory den things, and then left. Now, it was here I decided that I would go and get Pikmin's knife, as although it isn't the best weapon, it definitely will be part of this run, as it's one of the only items that's actually considered a straight up gift. Now, the raiders in Pikmin Gallery weren't that bad, except for one random raider survivalist, who would destroy me if I wasn't careful. Luckily, by now I have several ranks in the big leagues perk, so I was able to disarm him without too much trouble, and proceed to beat the crap out of him. When I first reached Slab, he managed to beat me when he force pushed me out of the way, and then the rest of his men gunned me down. On my second attempt, I just sprayed him with my water gun, and watched as Gage completely destroyed everything that came into his line of sight. I then talked to Pikmin, and he gave me the key to his locker and all the contents that were inside. Once I returned back to Pikmin's gallery, I found his locker, opened it up, and I got Pikmin's knife as well as a handful of metal armor. Now, I'm not actually using it because all of it put together still is worse than Gage's armor, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Now, before making my way to the glowing sea, I decided I would go and pick up a suit of power armor. As far as I know, the only power armor that's given to you as a gift is from the Brotherhood, so I'm actually going to need to side with them for a bit. Now, Paladin Dance can battle his way through Arcjet on his own. Throw Gage into the mix, and let's face it, I'm just a background NPC, as they blasted their way through the entirety of the building. Something odd that I noticed here was that the synths actually say fellow synth verified to Paladin Dance. I'm not sure if this is actually something, or maybe I was just listening a bit too hard. There's not actually too much to say about this quest. Once again, I was kind of just doing stuff in the background, as the other two really didn't need me. Either way, for some reason, Paladin Dance gave me the power armor, so at least I'm happy with that. Now that I was all suited up, I made my way to Fallout 3 so I could meet the big green man. On my way there, I decided to fight a Deathclaw, and oddly enough, I glitched out like crazy, and wound up outside of bounds. It's okay, after a couple minutes of falling, I teleported back into, the plane of reality, and proceeded to take my vengeance on the Deathclaw. The only other thing that happened in the glowing sea was I had slight flashbacks from my rolling pin run, when I stabbed every one of the cultists in the crater of Adam. Good times. Once I reached Virgil, I retired my power armor a bit, and decided to give Gage it since, let's face it, he is now the main character, and I'm just going to be in the background for the rest of this run. Now, normally green tech is pretty easy for me, as the gunners aren't that bad when compared to synths or anything else really. For some reason in this run, however, the gunners were brutal. I think this was mainly due to the fact that I'm pretty sure my armor broke again, as I wasn't really feeling the difference with it on or off. Making things worse was, unlike in the past when it's broken, I didn't have any defensive perks, which meant that the gunners were just burning through me. Luckily, like the hero he is, Gage was able to hard carry me throughout most of the building, until I finally sorted out my armor issues. I still was having problems, mind you. It was just a bit better than earlier. While I was in Green Tech, I also managed to pick up a really good shotgun. I'll show a bit of footage here. I'm not actually planning on using it during the run since it's not a gift, but it still is pretty cool. The courser itself wasn't actually that bad, as once again the Shishkebab's gauge combo was too much for him to handle, so he just handed over his chip. Now when I got the chip decoded, for once in my life I didn't kill everybody in the railroad just so I could do one thing, but instead spared them because I'm going to be needing them. Because achieving more than they ever achieved in like a year in a day wasn't enough, the railroad wanted me to go and kill a bunch of synths inside the circuit board, or whatever it's called. The synths in the switchboard aren't any stronger than the ones in Fort Hagen, so once again they too got destroyed by me and Gage. For once I wasn't the background character, instead Deacon was the background character this time, as let's face it, he's useless. The only good thing that came of this was I did get to deliver as a gift, which is good news as it is a gun I can use. I didn't use it, mind you, because it only had about 50 rounds, which is nothing when you haven't invested any points into Gunslinger. The railroad had many more meaningless tasks for me to do, but instead I don't want to show you guys that because they suck, so here's me venting on Arturo. Once I was finished with the railroad's busy work, I was ready to go to the Institute, and for once they didn't glitch out, and this time they actually gave me items to build a teleporter. The only thing they didn't give me was a military grade circuit board, and this is where another sort of difficult situation pops up. As far as I know, there's no one that gives you a military grade circuit board, either in the form of a settlement, or actually just outright giving you the item. This meant that I actually have to kill something to get it, and I decided I'd make myself work for the circuit board as I killed an Assaultron. Now, there was an Assaultron right outside the Finch farm, which is where I was building the teleporter, as it was the only settlement I was given, so I battled it, which went surprisingly well, and took the circuit board. After that, I teleported to the Institute, and listened to Sean ramble about, stuff. The whole time I was really focused on the random synth that had wandered into the room. Shocking even me, I decided not to betray the railroad yet, and decided to help them out a bit while I was in the Institute. The first of their quests just has me go to Cambridge Polymer Labs and pick up something. The main issue with this is that the place is caked in ghouls, and also you will get locked in there if you don't kill the guide. Luckily I have the power of foresight, so I killed the guide and proceeded to make my way through. I had the absolute worst time trying to actually locate the thing I was looking for, but eventually I did find it and the robot came back. I am not sure how this is possible. All I know was that Molly was back with a vengeance as she began destroying me with the flamethrower buzzsaw combo. Luckily I had a flamethrower buzzsaw combo myself, so I just killed her and left. Now that the railroad was done with me for a bit, I decided to help the Institute and got to synth retention. Once again, the raiders aren't really a problem except for that one with the fat man, but the problem with them is they never spot me, so I just made my way through without any trouble. For once, I didn't try and kill Gabriel because I have since learned that it's entirely pointless, so I just chopped up his guards and then left. Once I was done kidnapping the kidnapper, I was sent to Bunker Hill in order to capture the synths that were there. Now the game wants you to either alert the railroad or the Institute about what's going to go on there, but I decided to play devil's advocate today, and I alerted the Brotherhood. This did literally nothing, so I continued as normal except there were no enemies this time, which was a bit weird. Since I'm technically a friend of every faction that was in the building, nothing was attacking me except for the turrets, so I made my way inside and tried to recall the synths. For once I didn't try and kill them, but sadly since I can't do a simple task in order to save my life, I couldn't figure out how to recall them. The synths paid for that dearly, so I left with a couple more synth kills under my belt. When I reached the CIT, Sean tried to scold me for, killing his babies, but I showed him I was the bigger man by literally throwing him off the building. After that, I went and stabbed more of his children before realizing that I needed to attend a board meeting, so I did, where I annoyed all the other scientists. Once I was done with that, I was sent to Mass Fusion to get the beryllium agitator. Now normally Mass Fusion was one of the hardest parts of the game, but I decided to cheese it this time, so it really wasn't that bad. Once I reached the building, I jumped straight off into Finn's waiting arms. This lets me skip literally everything in the building, so I was happy about that. Now here's where I realized an issue. I currently do not know where my power armor is, and I only have a Radaway, a Radix, and a Dream. This means I'm gonna have to get the beryllium agitator with virtually no radiation resistance, which would prove to be a bit of trouble as the reactor can give you up to 100 rads a second. In the end, I decided to use a bit of jet that I had from Coulter's lair, and ran straight through the reactor core all the way to the agitator and picked it up. This of course tripped the alarms, and now I had a sentry bot to deal with. Now the sentry bot was trouble. Surprisingly, its machine guns weren't all that bad, as long as I ran headfirst into it, I would get the moving target to start, and it wouldn't actually damage me that much. The main issue, and the thing I really had to worry about, was its slaps. You see, the sentry bot will kind of swing its arms around randomly sometimes, and it's so quick that I can't really avoid it. Worse still is that it stuns me, which lets it shoot out a couple rockets while I'm stunned, and pretty much kill me on the spot. After many attempts, I decided to wait for Gage to attract its attention, and then charge in like a real hero from behind. This let me kill it without taking too much damage, so I moved on to taking on the Assaultrons. Now the Assaultrons are pretty tough, but honestly they're not as bad as the Sentry Bot, so after a bit of looping I was able to take them out. I didn't even bother trying to help the synths once I reached the exit of the building, as let's face it, the Brotherhood will evaporate me on the spot. Before I could continue the real story, I had a bit of busy work to do for the Institute, including talking to Mr. Door and then eating Mr. Door, installing some radio bits, and powering up the reactor. This then makes the synth tell me that the railroad is being attacked by the Brotherhood, so I headed over there and found out the railroad is not being attacked by the Brotherhood. However, after I had my conversation with Desdemona, the railroad got attacked by the Brotherhood. This makes Desdemona give me the railway rifle, which is by far the best gift I've received in this entire run. Not only did I get the rifle, however, though, I also got 100 rounds for it, so you can expect that I was going to be using that for the rest of the run. Now, the railway rifle's real strength is the fact that it could destroy limbs and armor pretty easily. This makes it the ideal weapon against the Brotherhood Knights, so I used it to battle my way through the Old North Church. Once I was done dealing with the Brotherhood in the church, I made my way to the police station and battled the Brotherhood that was there. Now, the police station was easily the hardest part of this entire run. I'm not sure why, but there was an absurd amount of Brotherhood soldiers there, and they all did pretty good damage. Eventually, I managed to clear them out, however, and that's when a whole Brotherhood vertibird crashed into me. Now, inside the vertibird, there happened to be a Brotherhood Knight with a Gatling laser, and he was the final boss of this run. He could do a huge amount of damage in close range, and let's face it, he's in full power armor, so he could easily overpower me. Luckily, through the power of teamworks and me being a coward, I was able to let my companions stick him out, and I ran away all the way to the Pridwin. Now, the Brotherhood on the Pridwin wasn't that bad. Now, for some reason, I didn't get the disguise. I'm not sure if you're supposed to do some sort of pre-requesty in order to get that, but Deacon never gave it to me, but it still wasn't that bad as he did give me a stealth boy, which I used to get through most of the Pridwin. I then just ran around on the upstairs like a maniac, installed all the bombs, then ran all the way down, and got death looped by Elder Maxon. Not only did he have a Gatling laser, but his bodyguards also had a Gatling laser, so they kinda just killed me every time I went down the ladder. I eventually realized that I had to drop the difficulty in order to survive that, so I did, left the building, raised the difficulty again, and then escaped. This marks the end of the Brotherhood, and effectively finishing off the run. Now you see, the final part for the railroad is actually taking out the Institute, but the thing is that I'm still working with the Institute, and they want me to take out the railroad, so... yeah, I decided to kill the railroad. The only person left after I let loose the first two explosions was Tinker Tom, but I killed him so quickly even he didn't realize he was dead. Once I was done with them, I decided to play a game of Pin the Nail on the Sean, and I eventually won. This finished the game, proving yes, you can beat Fallout 4 with gifts. Okay, this was a really fun run. I got sick halfway through recording this, however, and that's why it took so long to come out. Something you may have noticed also during this run is I did upgrade my mic, so I do hope it helps with the quality of my videos, as I was receiving a couple complaints about my mic being bad. Luckily, I got a new one, and it should sound much better as it is a legitimate recording mic, and not just my laptop. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you did enjoy, please consider subscribing, otherwise I'll catch you in the next one.